Welcome to Trivandrum.
Thank you.
This is a city where the ideas are very ambitious, the engineers are very talented, and every person you meet here will have an opinion about how to fix the world. It's a privilege to host Rahul Gandhi, the leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha, for this conversation on Kerala's IT and globally evolving technology stack. We are meeting today at Technopark. It's a symbol of our push into the future. Now, if you think about Technopark, this is one of the earliest technoparks in the country, inspired by the vision of late Rajiv Gandhi when he was pushing for telecom and technology evolution in India. Uh, Also, today we are sandwiched between two interesting days. Yesterday was the Employee Appreciation Day, and tomorrow will be the Women's Day. So, shout out to all women and, of course, employees in the room. And of course, you know that today we are also culminating the yatra by the opposition leader of Kerala. Rahul ji himself did the Bharat Jodo Yatra, where he did 4,000 kilometers across India over 146 days across 14 states. One thing that, of course, Shashi Tharoorji spoke about it. Journeys like that is what makes each discover one another. So today we want it to be a conversation. We just don't want it to be a question from us and answer from you. We also want you to ask us questions and then make us go through that. But before I do that, may I introduce G. Vijayaraghavan. He is the founding CEO of Technopark. Would you like to give a couple of words to us, please?
Good afternoon, and you hear me? Good afternoon, and thank you, Tony, for that opportunity. Just to say that I used to work with Keltron long ago when the cameras were being set up at the racecourse road, and that's when I used to work with Keltron in the late 80s, and that's when the first cameras were being set up at racecourse road, and I had the opportunity to meet with your father at that time. Also,
The CCTV ones.
pardon?
The CCTV ones.
The CCTV ones were all installed by Keltron. And then the first major computerization programs of which I was a part of. And then I had the opportunity to become one of the first employees in CDAC, where again we met and had the discussion with Mr. Pitroda and worked very closely with Mr. Pitroda, Dr. Bhatkar and others. In a way, Technopark, if you look at the articles of association of Technopark, is probably the same as of CDAC and CDOT at that time. And the objective was to create a new culture. And probably this is the first technology park, not probably, it is the first technology park in the country, but probably the first technology park which was set up for the purpose of economic development and job creation. Most of the others were with research in a focus. That is what made it different. And the interesting thing, when you walked into this building, you would have seen, and I jokingly say on the left, you have the left, which is Mr. Nayanar, who laid the foundation stone. And on the right, you have Mr. Narasimha Rao, Mr. Anthony, and Mr. Karnagaran, who came in for the inauguration. It continued through multiple governments. Today, it is probably the single largest place for investments. If you look at the per square foot of investment in Kerala and foreign investment, employment generation, this is still the largest, not only in the state, probably in the country. Unfortunately, we have most of it done by government and very little of infrastructure done by the private sector, which is a big change that was there. So I had a few other questions, but Tony said no political questions. So I'm not going to ask political questions. I'll probably pass it on to one of them and they can pass it on to you, or if I can meet you later on.
Thank you. And Rahulji, I just wanted to ask you, if you are not a politician, if you are not in politics, would you have worked for a company? If so, would it have been a tech company, or would you have started up something of your own as well?
Well, one definition and the one I'm best known by is a politician. I actually do many other things. So I find these definitions, oh, you're a politician, you're a technocrat, you're a techie, you're an engineer. I think these are very constricting definitions. But the answer to that, if I wasn't in working for a political organization, I would probably be uh, doing some sort of entrepreneurship, probably in the aerospace world. Um, I'm a pilot, so,
Yeah.
and my father was a pilot, my uncle was a pilot, so we have that little strain.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also have a space park now being built in Kerala. So hopefully we'll have some innovations coming there. We have a couple of questions that we have from the audience as well. So we have Vinod Subramaniam here.
Actually, I think about it slightly differently. I think that um, you should be curious about everything, right? And actually, um, you should have an open mind towards pretty much everything. And that's when you can start to connect the dots, you know.
Very interesting. And one of the things that when I speak to youth in the AI world, I say that there are only two characteristics that truly matter now. One is curiosity, and second is empathy, because machines cannot think like us. So if the empathy is what makes us different than from the machines. So if you have curious and if you're empathetic, then the rest of the things
And,
normally
and I would add one more,
please.
which is persistence.
Indeed. Thank you.
So if
So,
you can keep going, you know, and keep being positive, then that's also very powerful.
absolutely, indeed. So maybe can I ask Vinod one question, please? Yeah, Vinod is here.
Good morning, Rahulji. My name is Vinod Subramanian. I have about 20 plus years of IT experience, been working for multiple MNCs. My question is, as you rightly said in some of those videos, a lot of transformation is happening through AI for multiple industries. How would the skill set need to evolve, like especially to place like Kerala or anywhere in India for that matter? What is the change that you see need to be done from a professional community? As you might also see, this is also causing a lot of layoffs and other impacts as well. So how do we really absorb that, and how do we move forward from there?
You know, we were sitting in the other room and we started talking and we immediately agreed on one thing. And it's something that I fundamentally believe in, which is that jobs do not disappear, jobs are relocated. So um, people think, oh, a robot that cleans a room has taken away the job of somebody who was previously cleaning the room. Yes, in the room. But if you go to the factory where the robot is being made, that robot has created a lot of jobs. That value chain has created a lot of jobs in the place where that robot was made. So the question is not so much about jobs being lost or jobs disappearing. The question is there is a contest for jobs on the planet. How good are you at capturing them? Right? And that's really the question. So that requires a particular mindset. It requires a particular level of openness, connectivity. Um, it requires an industrial structure. So, in my mind, there are essentially two parts of the economic system. One is a consumption side, and the other is a production side. So, this came out of the production side. And uh, Uber is helping the consumption side, right? So, in my mind, the real jobs come from the production side. The large numbers of jobs come from the production side. You can get excellent jobs in the IT space, but you cannot get jobs for everyone in India in the IT space. It's not going to happen because the IT space simply does not have the knock-on effects that a car manufacturer does, or a phone manufacturer does, or a ship manufacturer does, right? So industrial production is something, in my mind, where the real jobs sit. And the disappointing thing is that we've allowed China to just capture that. And so we play the United States, India, pretty much all other countries we play in the consumption space. If you look at our big companies, you know, you worked in the automobile sector, but if you look at our big companies, our startups, they're all consumption, mostly consumption, right? They're on the consumption side. We don't have big startups on the production side. So that's really, to me, the interesting space. And the real question is, China's built a superb industrial system, unmatched in the world, but we don't like their coercive system. We don't like the fact that they're not democratic. So, to me, the big opportunity for India is, can we build an industrial system, a production system, but maintain our democratic values? That to me would be a huge service to the people of India and be a huge service to the rest of the world.
Thank you. And you would find that even in Technopark here, most of the startups are not on the production side; it's actually on the service side.
Yeah.
So that I think is a problem that systemically I think we
Now,
need
there's
to.
another thing, that the amount of innovation that comes out of the production side is order of magnitude more than comes out of the consumption side. Because production is actually a much more complicated activity. To, to put a car together is a very, very complex activity. Takes large numbers of people, organization, conflict, all that is inside a factory. That's not there in a software park.
But then we also say that in the future, every job can be a software job because programming now really doesn't require a lot of technical skills, right? Because with AI coming in, with conversational technologies, a lot of things can be done directly by even individuals who are not experts in technology.
There I disagree. I disagree, but maybe I'm wrong. I think there's still, look, there's a social element to this. If you do not give your people jobs, you will have massive conflict in society. You can't. One of the reasons you want to give people employment is because you want to make sure that there's a harmonious society. Because if you do not give people employment, that causes intense pain to them.
Very true. And before we continue, is there any big message that you would like to share with us, or would we continue and then?
No, you continue, and then I'll put my message in my answers.
Great. So now that we spoke about AI, of course, we also know that you worked at some point in UK. So one of the things that we wanted to understand is from a work culture, because we also hear about work-life balance. We had an issue about a young lady having suicided because of the work pressure, etc. How do we balance life and work? Because I've worked in the West, I've worked in Japan, which is on the other extreme, for example, where it's very difficult for especially the youth to balance work and life. So are there any lessons that you could give us, insights that you could provide us, or maybe the do's and don'ts? And sorry, and even more, your job today, what you do today takes a lot of time and effort from you, right? How do you balance it without getting burned out as well?
Well, the first thing is the frame you use, right? So I can come here and I can say to myself, now I'm going to the tech park and I'm going to be working. Or I can come here and say, okay, I'm going to the tech park. There's a bunch of guys there. I'm going to have fun with them. So you can change by thinking about what you're doing. You can completely change the nature of what you're doing. I actually, most of the time, I don't consider my work. Most of the time, my work is curiosity. I'm like, oh, how does that work? Even if I'm in a situation where it's quite mundane and quite boring, I'll always try and be like, okay, what is that person doing? Why is he doing it like that? So that allows me to transform the way I think about things. I make sure that regardless of what happens, um, that before I go to sleep, I read a little bit, and even if it's 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, midnight, I do some exercise. That I just 90% of the time I will do that.
Very good. Thank you. I think, yeah, exercise is something that a lot of us probably lack. So,
No, and people think that, oh, time is, you know, I don't have time for exercise, or I don't have time for myself. Uh, Actually, it makes you very unproductive when you do that. So you're thinking that, oh, I'm going to save 1 hour by going to exercise. Actually, no. Actually, you're losing a lot of time by not doing exercise because you're inefficient, you're stressed, you're disturbed, right? And it's a culture. I remember when I was a child, um, I used to go to my grandmother's room, and every single day of her life, in the morning, I'd see her doing exercise. She had a yellow colored mat, and she would be doing exercise, for 1 hour. So I asked her, I said, Dadi, like every day you start like that? She's like, yeah, my father told me that. My father told me that in your life you should spend 1 hour minimum of physical exercise. I think that's a very good rule.
thank you. Do you play any team sport? Yesterday you said that you play FIFA on on VA.
No, I play. Do I play? I used to play football. I loved football. I used to play cricket in school and hockey in school, but I loved football. And then I used to box in college. Uh, I used to do triathlons, running, swimming, cycling, and then now I do martial arts. I've always done martial arts
Yeah, now
somewhere or the other.
now pickleball and paddle is becoming very very popular around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so most of the places now you see that a lot of the team members are also playing that. We have a question from Deepa Nair.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Deepa. I'm working as an HR in IT industry for last 15 years. So it's a follow-up question what Vinod have already asked and aligned what already mentioned. We have to create jobs. That is something we have to do. So I would like to definitely know from you, like what better policies we can have so that we have more career opportunities for our youth within Kerala so that we have a better
Policies have to be made on the back of changes that you're seeing in the world, right? So, for example, 100 years ago, people saw that, oh, there's a movement towards the internal combustion engine, right? The internal combustion engine and petrol fundamentally shaped the last 100 years of the planet, right? If you were not part of that system, you were not part of modernity. You could not be, right? And our current superpower, was built on that. So if you go into the details of how did America actually become powerful, or how did Britain before that actually become powerful, you find that they became powerful by controlling mobility. Right? The British controlled the steam engine and coal. They built a navy. They controlled the trade routes. And the Americans did the same with petrol. And now the single biggest change that is taking place is that idea is being challenged. The way we move is fundamentally being questioned and changed. So the technical people here would understand what I'm saying. An internal combustion engine essentially is up and down movement of the piston. And you have to transform that up and down movement into circular motion. And your fuel is in the fuel tank. Now, something fundamental is happening, which is that we are moving to a world of circular motion. We are moving to the world of the electric motor. Everybody says, oh, there are drones, there are electric cars, there are electric trains, there are medical instruments. If you go into detail of what they actually are, they're essentially built on the same architecture. An electric motor is running a drone. It has a battery attached to it. EV is essentially a number of electric motors with batteries attached to it. What you see in pretty much everywhere where things are moving, the electric motor is somewhere and a battery is somewhere. The only difference between this and a drone is electric motors. This has a battery, this has a camera, right? If you were to, the drone is essentially this with mobility on it. So that to me is where the real powerful things are going to happen. If you go to Ukraine and you look at what is going on in the battlefield, you'll find that circular motion, the drone, is completely decimating the internal combustion engine. If you even look, for example, at what is going on now in Iran, you will see that we are moving, the military power is moving towards the battery, optics, and the electric motor. And who dominates these technologies? Not India, not America, not Europe, China. And that for us is a huge problem, because we are the only people who can make that transition. We are the only people who have the scale to make that transition. I think that the United States and Europe, as far as circular mobility is concerned, cannot compete with the United States, with China anymore. But I think that given the right policies, given the right vision, India can compete with the Chinese on electric mobility, circular motion. There are three technologies that are at the core of this, right? There is the camera, there is the electric motor, there is the battery, and then there is the software that brings them together. To me, this is the space where India has to focus and compete.
Very interesting. Thank you. And like you said, I work.
And if you do that, you will create order of magnitude more jobs than you can create in software, because this has thousands of components. This is not one factory that produces this. This is thousands and thousands of factories, connected factories that are producing this. So I want India to be there. I want India to be sitting. I want the Chinese to look and say, who the hell are these guys? Where have they come from? That's what I want, right? Right now, they're getting a free run.
And that's what China did to the West. So, but again, the question that I have is a follow-on question on this. Is this a mindset issue that we have, or is it policies, or is it a mix of both, or different things? How do you see that?
Look at our big businesses. How many of them are in the production business? No, answer.
Very few.
Very few. So the businesses that produce, and they're there, they're exceptional, right? Bajaj produces, right? The guys who are doing the two-wheelers, exceptional. They are actually competing globally, and they can challenge anybody globally. But do we encourage them? Do we push them? Do we help them? Do we support them? Not much. our entire system is captured essentially by 3 or 4 businesses, right? You know the names: Adani, Ambani. These are the 5 guys. They don't produce anything. And actually what happens is they help sell products that damage our local producers. So you have to have an attitude of production. You go to you've worked in a factory. You worked for Nissan. Who did you work
For Nissan, I work for GE.
Yeah,
I
he
work for-
understands it. You work for Nissan. You walk into Nissan and you see a production culture, right? You walk into a Bajaj or even an Enfield. You see that culture, and that's really where powerful, the large numbers of jobs are to be created.
Thank you. And again, one more question.
There's
You-
also a very strong political aspect to this. You take our GST, right? Our GST is designed to harm producers. Our GST basically kills producing states and helps consumer states. So there are fundamental things. You design a GST that kills off all your small and medium industry. Then afterwards you're saying, okay, but why are we not having any jobs? Right? So there are political actions that you take, things that you value, things that you protect, that allow this to happen.
Thank you. Very helpful. Very interesting as well. Can we switch?
I'll give you an example that really struck me uh, just a couple of weeks back. I went to Germany, and I'm very interested in drones. So I told them, listen, I want to see, your cutting edge drone manufacturers. And so they were like, yeah. And so we went to see a cutting edge drone manufacturer. Did a fantastic presentation. They're operating in Ukraine. And then after their presentation, I said to them, can I ask you a question? I'm very impressed by what you're doing. And they're like, yes. I said, what percentage of your motors and what percentage of your batteries come from China? Pin drop silence. Right? Now, I was thinking, well, why not India? Why can't the answer to that question be India? Right? And you can see it. You can see, for example, I went to BMW. BMW is essentially drowning because they cannot take on they cannot even conceptually understand the transition that is taking place to circular motion. And I really don't expect them to be able to challenge the Chinese. But I'm very confident that aligned properly, an Indian company can take on the Chinese. I have no doubt about it. But for that, we got to start, we got to start killing some lies that we tell ourselves. If we don't stop lying to ourselves, it's not going to happen. People don't like that. People don't like it, but it's the truth.
Thank you. That was very, very helpful. And I fully like the simplicity that you talked about, right? Which is battery power, a computer, a camera, and then, circular motion. How you tie
My
it all
father,
together.
I remember, I was a kid. So you have to understand where I'm coming from. I was 12, not even, I was 12 years old. And one day my father said, listen, Rahul, there's a presentation you have to come to. I didn't know what a presentation was. I think, what is a presentation? And I sat, I was bored out of my brains. And I sat for 3 hours watching a presentation on this is 1983, on watching how the computer can transform India. And I was like, get me out of the room, because I just didn't understand what was going on. Right? Sometime later, my father would keep forcing me to use a computer. Those days, I don't know how many of you use those computers. They're practically, unless you were Yeah, they were like that, and there was, there was no graphic interface. It was MS-DOS. Unusable for a person who doesn't fundamentally understand them. And then one day I went to his office and I just said, Papa, you know, like, what is this? And I still remember he took a piece of paper and he drew a two by two. I didn't know what a two by two was, two by two matrix. I didn't know what that was. And the two by two was high capital, low capital, high skill, low skill. And then he said, you see this box? And I was like, yes. He says, we're going to dominate this. He says, not, these are his words. He says, nothing can stop India from dominating this box. Maybe this other boxes we are not going to dominate, but this box is going to dominate. I'll tell you another story. Sam Petroda will tell you this. The head of General Electric came to India. And my father had a chat with him about building software in India. And he went out of the room and said, the man is crazy. He said, the man is crazy. How can we build software in India? But that is what having a vision is. That's what it means. If everybody is saying, yeah, you're making perfect sense, it's all right. No, there's no vision there. A vision by definition has to look crazy because other people can't see it. And so that's when you're asking me, what do I expect Indian people to do? I expect them to push back when they're told stuff that is not true, is not real. Right? I expect them to say, no, this is my idea. It looks crazy to like all these other people, but I'm doing it. And then you'll find, oh, suddenly all those people are saying, that's a great idea. Mr. Vajpayee gave a speech in Parliament saying, Rajiv Gandhi is going to destroy the Indian economy. Computer will take away all our jobs. He then gave a speech 15 years later on how great the computer was. So that's what I expect from Indian people. You're seeing that there's a complete transformation taking place. It's an exciting thing. You're the people who can pull it off. But you got to be able to see what actually is happening.
Very interesting. By the way, I worked for GE as well, General Electric as well. I was a CIO there. And so I know the story about Jack Welch coming in and setting it up in Bangalore. And a large portion of the IPs that GE has today comes from Bangalore.
Right.
So, of course, fully agree with
So we have to value what we have. I keep saying it. We are sitting on the most valuable resource on the planet. If you came 100 years ago to India, right? We didn't have this resource. The connectivity was not there for this resource. Everybody used to say, oh, population is the problem. Well, that's quite interesting because our population is what has given us data, right? This conversation is data. Who owns this conversation? Who owns this conversation?
the cloud.
No. This conversation cannot be transmitted without YouTube. So YouTube owns this conversation. So we have to be able to see that. Who owns our data? How are we going to strategically use our data? That's really the question. You're engineers, you're technical people. Can you run a petrol engine without petrol? Is it possible? No. Answer? No. Can you run AI without data? Is it possible? So we keep talking about AI, But we have the data. Can anyone build AI without large scale data? Not possible. Who has the biggest, largest data pile in the world? And I'm not just talking conversations, Uber drives. I'm talking genetic information. I'm talking medical information. Do you realize the value of the data of our medical information, of our genetic information? Entire medicine of the future is going to be built on it. So those are the hard questions. We have an AI summit. We don't have a data summit. Nobody is saying, listen, it's literally like Saudi Arabia turning around and having a summit on the petrol engine. It's like that. And then nobody in Saudi Arabia is saying, listen, guys, we got the biggest oil reserves in the world. Please understand what has happened. The US deal that has been signed by the Indian government is essentially handing over our data to the United States. Nobody said, except me, nobody said a word. It's mind blowing. You imagine if you went to, Russia, and Russia handed over their entire oil supply to the United States, what would happen? They were shouting and screaming. Not a peep in India. It's quite surprising to me.
I like the focus on data, being a CIO.
Of course.
Thank you. I think Srikumar is here, the GTech. Yeah.
You agree with me? Yeah.
Very good morning, Rahulji. Welcome to Trivandrum. I just wanted to touch upon the topic of data right now with AI, with innovations, with technology, the buzzwords now. How do we in India balance ourselves from government, from policies, from restrictions, from regulations, and from all sorts of governance? How do we regulate and how do we balance between the innovations that are happening in technology to the data protection and citizens' digital rights? Now, that's an area where data pilferage, data is going to be very important. Data is the most powerful resource in the world. So, how do we balance between the innovations that are happening?
That is you said, I'm a politician. That's one of the central questions that the politics of India should be discussing. That this is our biggest resource. How are we going to utilize it? What is its nature? Who has access to it? At what cost do they have access to it? These are the questions actually the political system should be discussing. Not whether, what we should eat and what we should drink and whether cow urine is good for you. Yeah. Right? So it is actually it's a democratic exercise. It's a listening exercise, because really nobody has the answer. If I tell you, listen, this is how you should use the data, that's nonsense. But it is a conversation. It's a conversation with our businesses, with our people, with the multinationals of the world, with the Americans. It's a conversation, right? And it is the most powerful conversation India can have. I mean, if in that deal, India turned around and said, listen, this is all fine, but our data is the most valuable data in the world, I can guarantee you there'd be no taxes in agriculture. There'd be no taxes in small and medium business. There'd be none of that. You have to, when you're negotiating and you all are negotiators. You got to know what you got. If suddenly Saudi Arabia goes and negotiates and has forgotten that it has oil, what the hell are they doing? Right? So you first, before you go into a negotiation, you got to say, okay, what do we have? I can tell you straight away, we have brilliant people, more than anybody else. We have huge diversity, so we can understand many different things from many different angles. We have the largest pile of data on this planet. We have the best engineering talent. We have the best medical talent. Kerala produces the best nurses. Now come and negotiate. Don't come and negotiate with me without having a clear understanding of what I got on my side. That's how it should be done.
Thank you. Since you talked about drone quite a bit, we have somebody who actually makes drones in the room. So Devan, if somebody can get the phone over to. That's right. Could you give us a little bit about how do you, also on the data side as well, right? How do you capture the data and what do you do with the data as well?
No, tell me and answer me another question.
Sure.
What do people like me need to do for you to compete with DJI successfully? Answer me that question.
Sir, I am proud to say with next 3 years, we will be competing the DJI because 80% of the components right now we're developing in-house in Kochi. Maybe our rest of the R&D is finishing in 3 years. So right now in
So you make your own motors?
yes, own motors. But sir,
What
the
type of
fact
motors you
is-
make?
BLDC motors, and the fact is we
Brushless?
depending upon brushless and ducted fan also, and we depending on the infrastructure of Hitachi, other corporate infrastructure for developing that motors.
What size drones do you make?
Size largely carrying 50 to 100 kg payload.
Can I come and see?
Yes, yes.
Where is it?
Kochi, sir.
Okay. Here itself?
Yeah,
Cochin.
Kochi.
Kochi, sorry.
I also bring some of our product to showcase to you.
But you have something here?
Yes, in my car. Yes.
Oh, you have it here. You brought it here?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Happy to showcase you, sir. Okay.
No, sorry, you were asking.
No. We just want to. No, please. It's your floor. But no, we also want to see because you're working on the agriculture.
But
field as well.
I'm gonna call you on that.
Yeah.
3 years from now, I'm coming and seeing that you've knocked down DJI. You're not getting away simple, right?
Yes, I'm sure, bro.
No,
Yeah,
I'm coming.
he
I'm
got it.
coming 3 years to see.
We'll note it down. Thanks, Evan. Yeah, unless you wanted to add something about the agriculture use cases and data or something that you think is relevant.
Yeah, sir. Actually, we are 5 years old company. So myself, Devan Chandrasekharan, I'm the founder of Fuselage Innovations, and we are the national startup day. We are the one of the national startup awardee from Honorable.
How many people?
43. Total.
43 people working.
Yes, 43 people working. All are from Kerala.
And you designed them yourself?
Yes.
Quadcopters?
Yeah, quadcopter. And for marine innovation also we are working for handling the heavy payloads in marine through cranes,
Right.
lifting the heavy payload on an average 10 tons. That is also we are working with the
How do you react to what I said about circular motion and the electric motor?
electric motor. Actually, we are in-house around from 70 kV motors. So we are
No, I mean, I was saying that we are seeing a revolution in circular motion,
okay.
that we are going from the petrol engine to the electric motor.
Okay.
How do you think about that?
Sir, there are limitations are there
Mhm.
in regards to the flight time. Only the power is a major challenge.
Mhm.
Like we already having limitation, the high quality of lithium. That is a major issue. But we are working for the lithium with the phosphorus for getting the most higher flight time. Once it is done, we can replace the engine with the batteries.
Do you think electric vehicles will replace internal combustion engine vehicles or no?
Not right now, sir.
But 5 years, 7 years, 10 years?
Yes, it will happen.
Thank you, Devan. That is very informative. Really appreciate that. We have a question from Vinita.
Hello, Rahulji. Wonderful to see you here in Trivandrum. I'm Vinita, part of startup ecosystem in Kerala. My question is that we did speak a lot about some of the best talents available in Kerala and in India, but a lot of STEM drain does really happen. It is a fact. And over a period of time, we've tried probably to make them stay through developing our startup ecosystem, but even then, we still have those challenges being seen. Like we're still a consumer state and the production is absolutely not happening just like you said. How do you think some of the these challenges can be overcome over a
I
period
mean,
of time?
I think it's an attitude. Um, and the government has to provide an ecosystem, an architecture for you to produce. It's much the government the government doesn't have to provide you as much support in software as it has to provide you in production. That's a much more difficult, complicated thing to manage. So government has to understand these things. Government has to have a strategy on these things. Government has to know, or at least guess, where things are going to move. You know, the reason I was telling you about that conversation with my father was because he understood that things are moving there. Software is going to give us that quadrant on that piece of paper. So the government has to have that type of a sense that, listen, this is where we are going, right? And uh, directionally, we need to be aware. I'll tell you a story. You know, my friend here, um, who makes drones, I'll tell you a story that just will explain to you how government behaves when it comes to these things. You know, I think it was about maybe 2015, 16. SPG director called me and said, uh, I want to speak to you. So I said, please come. So he came. And I thought to myself that, let me like show this guy something. So I used to fly and I used to make drones. So I had a drone and I called him and I flew it in my garden. And he was watching that thing. And I said, don't you think this is going to be a huge security problem for you? That, and I did it as a joke. You know what happened 3 days later? Not 3 days, a few days later, drones were banned across the country. No, please understand the power. That one guy who just happens to be security can explode the entire industry in a second. Right? So that type of stuff, you simply cannot. I mean, if you're operating like that some one bureaucrat can suddenly turn around and just blow entire industries to pieces, then you can never do that. So people have to understand that, boss, this is not just a security issue. This is a billions of dollar industry. And fine, it's a security problem, but we got to deal with the security problem. We don't kill the goose. Right? So government has to allow these conversations. Now, government frankly doesn't understand what you understand. So the conversation has to be with you, not with some government bureaucrats who are just talking to each other. It's got to be strategic. It's got to be give and take. We'll give you this, but we want this. Right? So, and you've got to think about it on large scale changes. So if you're thinking that there is going to be a fundamental change in the way we're going to move, that's an interesting place to be. If you're thinking there's going to be a fundamental change in the way medicine works, that's an interesting place to be. Right? So, and then you make 3 or 4 bets and you say, we're going to bet in this. And then maybe one will not work or two will not work, one will work. IT worked. Other bets at that time didn't actually work. One doesn't really hear about them, but there were multiple bets that were made.
And you also talked about, of course, a curiosity, second, interactions that piqued your interest in certain things. One of the things that we find also is the education, right? Because right from the very early education, it's more about memorizing things rather than learning, understanding, and discovering. And later, as you come into higher education, also we see the same kind of issues here. So, do you really see that it's not just about the policies of the government, it's not just about the individual, but it's also about how we are trained, because we are inherently being constrained from that curiosity.
Look, that's one side of it. So I've studied in the United States, I've studied in England, I've worked in Europe, in England, and I work in India, I've studied in India. There are huge advantages to our system. Huge advantages to our system. But we don't actually play on those advantages. So there are huge advantages to our system. There are huge advantages to our way of thinking. But we don't actually develop them. Right? The Indian mind can manage complexity like no other mind. There's no American mind that can manage the level of complexity that an Indian mind can manage. Literally, without any question. Right? The number of equations that an Indian mind can juggle is beyond. You could, for example, walk into this room and say, listen to somebody, listen, can you, rank all these people? And they'll give you an answer. Literally, they'll give you an answer. Right? So there is huge strength to our system. Our system is much better at managing the internal space. Much better. Right? The Western world literally collapses because they cannot manage internal space. They're very good at organizing outside. Right? They can organize everything nicely. Inside, they can't organize. We might not be so good at organizing outside. We can organize inside beautifully. Look at our greatest leaders. I went to see Narayana Guruji's ashram today, right? What was he doing? He was organizing the inside. He was teaching you how to organize your own internal structure. Look at anybody who's successful in India. Look at Mahatma Gandhi. You read Mahatma Gandhi. He's literally telling you this is how you should organize yourself. Right? So we have a lot to give to other people. I like to say it. China likes to say they have never been colonized. They love saying that. Well, we colonized them. Buddhism colonized the Chinese. It went from here. So their entire philosophical structure comes from Bihar. Right? So I am not one who says, look, that system is better. There are things over there that are good, and we should take them. But there are things over here that are excellent, and we should use them, and we should also give them.
Indeed, if you drive on the Indian roads, you can do pretty much anything nowadays. Thank
Managing chaos.
Indeed, absolutely. It's actually leading through uncertainties is what, as leaders, we always teach our employees, right? Because on a normal day, you don't need to lead, you don't need to manage. But crisis is when you really need to step up. We are inherently good at that.
No, and the other thing is that in India, this is something strange. But in India, the guys who are actually really, really good, they're almost hidden. You don't see them. They're somewhere hidden, back in the back. And those are the guys that are running the backbone. Right? And then there's a fancy guy over there, and you're like, yeah. But then you're like, okay, so who actually? I went to I shouldn't say actually. But I sometime back, I went to a factory, right? And chatting to the guy in charge, excellent. And then he says to me, yeah, but this is the guy who runs the thing, right? And then the depth of understanding he had was, A class, but not given maybe the respect that he should have, not given the remuneration that he should have.
Thank you. We have a question from Reshma Assis. So
Hi, Rahulji. I'm Reshma Aziz. I'm having 16 years experience in the IT industry. So tech employees often face challenges um, with long working hours, insecure policies, contractual insecurities. So should there be a better policy? Should there be stronger policy to secure them?
I mean, that's the simplest question. Yes, they should. You couldn't give me a, yeah, they should. Uh, Absolutely should. You let me off really easy there.
do you have any suggestions?
No, I suggest to have stronger policies to support the employees. No?
And what about from the women's side? Is there something that we can do that would improve your situation? What is the thing that disturbs you most? Is it the working hours? Is it what is
Work-life
it?
balance.
Huh?
Work-life balance.
Work-life balance.
Yes.
So how many hours a day are you forced to work?
Uh, 8 to 10.
Okay. But I mean, 8 hours not bad. I'm lucky if I get 8 to 10.
So there are a lot of employees working for long hours.
Yeah.
So work-life balance is one of the things.
And what do you do in your non-work time? Like, how do you spend your non-work time?
So
Do you have like a hobby? Do you have children? How do you do that?
yeah, I have a company of my own. I'll work in that, then I'll manage the family.
And what does the company do?
We are into contract staffing, business. Okay, software contract staffing.
And what's the most difficult part of your job?
Uh, I love I love all the part of my job.
Okay.
There's nothing difficult for me, but it is difficult to manage the family and job. That is where I find a challenge sometimes.
Thank you, Reshma.
Thank you.
It's actually quite interesting, and I think you already answered that earlier, right? If you enjoy your job, then a lot of the times, it really doesn't look like something that is stressing you out, right? But it's about how you manage your time, prioritization, and small tricks like that. So if you've seen some of that as well.
No, but the challenge actually is liking something you don't like. Like getting to like something that you don't like. That's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
That
And-
you say, okay, I don't enjoy this, and then you start to look at it carefully, and you change the perspective, and you say, actually, I quite like it.
And one other thing that we found is that when you're not learning new things, that interest kind of starts waning. So we always try to figure out new ways, like changing jobs, cross learning, new trainings, and things like that. So you kind of keep the interest at a level, so that then that stress really doesn't affect. Because if you do something that you, like you said, don't like, even for a short period of time, that kind of stresses you out way more than doing something that you enjoy for longer hours.
Yeah. I also find that if you do many unrelated things, you get a lot of cross fertilization going on between things that you do. So, for example, if you study history and you do software design and you're interested in hiking and you're interested in multiple things, you suddenly find that actually that thing from this space is helping me in this space. Elasticity, right? So I like to keep it as wide as possible. Even, for example, if I read, people ask me, oh, what book are you reading? I don't do it like that. I'll get interested in an area and I'll be like, okay, that's an interesting area, and now let me read in that area. So or even sort of, I find martial arts gives me huge information on how to deal with things, right? Principles over there, for example, of balance, of force, they're applicable everywhere. So I like to I like to have many things that I'm doing. And whenever I talk to my nephew and niece, I always tell them, listen, the more things you're doing, the better.
Indeed.
Don't get into, don't just, you know, I mean, be good at it. So don't just do it and not be good at it. But if you can do, you know, 5 6 things and be reasonably good at them, then they all start to add up.
Indeed, especially as you grow up, right? Because when you learn your peer's job, it's much easier to move up in your career if you're in a job versus just knowing deep about what you do. So we have different management styles around that, right? Liju had a question. Liju John. So
Hi Rahulji,
Hello.
good afternoon. My name is Liju. So my question is little bit apart from the tech world. So we have seen you have ride KTM Duke, Royal Enfield. So my question is it is really your personal passion or you got some spirit from your Bharat Jodo Yatra? And the last thing
No,
is
you know,
which is
I always, I'm curious. So I always like to travel around, meet people, look at things, understand how things work. That's just my nature is like that. And so I used to do cycling actually, long distance cycling. But nowadays, long distance cycling not possible for me because my security people it becomes ridiculous, right? If you're cycling and then you have these escort cars, it just doesn't work. So I can't do that. Um, and so I like the idea of uh, two wheels. And I don't really care what bike I'm riding. I like the sense of riding a two-wheeler. I'm perfectly happy riding, a scooter in some situations or a motorcycle in other situations. If you're asking me what motorcycle I think is good,
that was my last one.
you get a high on a specific.
no, I don't get into high. The high is when you're 25. At my age, at my age, high kills you on a motorcycle. So I don't do the high thing. Um, I quite like the KTM.
That was
It's
my
good.
last question. Which one you prefer to ride?
I like the KTM, but um, I prefer the KTM to the Enfield. Let's put it like that.
I have an Enfield. My son has a KTM, so we have this argument at home all the time. So I think he won out.
There's a good 450 BMW that is coming out. I think that'll be a good bike, but it's expensive.
That reminds me. I know that you were in Germany with BMW, etc. Of course, all these things are changing, right? Even with AI coming in, new technologies coming in. Have you ever ridden an autonomous car? Have you been in a car without a driver?
No, but I have a remote control car. I have it in my house and I use it to drive my dogs crazy. I make my dogs exercise with it, but it's a little thing. I've been doing remote control stuff since I was a little child. So my father, uh, my father and me built our first little remote control plane together. So I'm deeply into uh, that side of the world.
How many dogs you have? I think PD is one of them, right?
No, he died.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he died. Poor guy. I have 4.
Wow.
They're brothers.
Wow. Yeah, we have one. We have a lab, Sancho, and
Yeah.
he runs the house. We just living in the house. I think.
Yeah, it's true. My guys are they're quite naughty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to, right? Going back home.
Yeah.
So
No, I think I one of my favorite lines of Mahatma Gandhi, and I really resonate with that, is that something to the effect of, a people or a country that does not um, respect animals and respect all forms of life has a long way to go. So I don't restrict kindness to human beings. I think one should be kind and gentle to all beings. Uh, so That in fact, as I become more experienced uh, in politics, I think in life also, you have to start making some basic rules for yourself. You know, when you're young, the rules can be 5, 7, 10 rules, and then slowly you find that okay, now I'm centering down to one or two rules. And so I find that in my life and in my politics, the two rules that I am they are becoming my central rules more and more are, as you said, uh, non-violence and compassion towards other people, understanding other people, uh, and truth. So I find it very uncomfortable. In my job, I was told when I started, and many of my politician friends used to come and tell me that, listen, truth and politics don't go together. I was always told that.
I've heard that too.
And I am out to prove that it does.
I hope you win. I hope you're successful.
No, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's a framework I use, and it works for me fantastically. I mean, it like, literally works for me uh, in ways that I never ever imagined.
One thing that again I find politics in India is, we tend to put people in boxes, stereotypes, and then we don't really think across lines on ideas and thoughts, right? It's about who said it versus what is being said. It's quite a bit of that I find quite unnerving.
In India, one of the weaknesses of our system is that we box everybody, right? We love to create, oh, she's a woman, oh, he's so and so, oh, and we like to create that box. But people are not in boxes. People are, I mean, you cannot fit a person into a box. So
I know we are running out of time. Rahulji has been very nice with us. So what I will do is we'll have one more audience question, and then probably we'll wrap up unless, of course, we want to have more. So we have a question from Ganesh Kumar, IBM. Yeah, that's there. So
Good afternoon, Davudji. I am very thankful
good afternoon.
because Rajiv ji bought telecom and computer revolution in India. I got benefited. And after that, Manmohan ji bought economic revolution. I got benefited that. So if you have given an option to choose a technology or a mission, like digital payment or something like that, what would you choose for? What would you choose?
I mean, broadly, I answered the question. I would be thinking about new mobility, and new mobility not just restricted to cars or drones. New mobility um, across the board. And I would think about setting up India as a dominant force in that new mobility. So, new mobility would include drones, it would include railways, it would include uh, EVs, it would include
hyperloops.
it would include anything that moves in the way we are going to move in the 21st century. Um, that's what I would think about. Of course, embedded in that is software, right? Because that requires software for a drone to work. You need software. For an EV to work, you need software. So that is the part of the ecosystem. But that's what I would think.
At GE, we had electric locomotives, and at Nissan, of course, cars. We used to say these are computers on four wheels, more or less, right? With the battery powering it.
Yeah.
When you really think about it.
So if you take batteries, optics, and motors, It's everything, right? I mean, as I said before, this is just a drone without motors, right? And so to me, that's a really interesting place. But I would add a component to it, which is that do it harmoniously, do it with conversation, negotiation, partnership, mutual respect. Don't do it angrily, violently. So I would say that the culture of how you do it is also important.
Thank
Very
you,
important,
Rahulji.
and not just what we do, how we do. Rahulji, we're going to wrap up, but if you have any broader messages for us to take home with us, we'll be really.
Uh, He's got a question. We
Oh,
can
sorry.
end with that.
Good afternoon, Rahulji. My name is Pius Verghese. I have a question. We have got independence in the year 1947. Today we are in 2026. It's almost 80 years. So most of the politicians, BJP, Congress, many came over and ruled the country. And but even today, we are talking about freebies. All political parties, they are talking about freebies. I will give you 2,000 rupees. You survive with that. I will give you a few kilos of sugar. I will give you rice. When India become a developed country, this is not economic development. Even after 80 years, if you are talking about giving freebies to the people in India, it means we made them poor, poor, poor. It's not economic development. So when India will become an economically developed country,
What about freebies to Mr. Adani? No. You want to discuss? Let's discuss. Right? What about freebies to Mr. Adani? What about freebies to Mr. Ambani? What about all the huge amount of land that is given to them? Why don't we discuss that? If we are ready to stop those freebies, we'll stop these freebies. So please realize that the freebies that you're talking about are a reaction, right? People are saying, listen, 16 lakh crore rupees have been forgiven for Mr. Ambani and Adani, right? Now, it's interesting that you raise it. You see the freebie when a poor person is requesting it, and that poor person needs the freebie. But you don't see the freebie. You don't see the freebie when Mr. Adani gets it. Like, your question wasn't, when are we going to stop the freebies to Mr. Adani and Mr. Ambani? Right? So when you're looking at a political system, you got to look, I love all Indians. That's my starting point. I even love the people who hate me. Okay? So for me, what I am looking for is a win-win. Now, if we're going to have a conversation about freebies, then let's not have a conversation about only one side of the equation. Right? And let's not try and paint it as if there's only one side of the equation that's getting the freebies. Because that's not true. The amount of freebies that Mr. Adani and Mr. Ambani and 5-7 of our big businesses get is order of magnitude. Order of magnitude. Not 10 times, not 50 times, not 100 times, thousands of times what our poor people get. That's a fact. And nobody can get away from it. Right? So I'm more than happy to remove all freebies from poor people. But then you got to remove all freebies from the likes of Mr. Adani and Mr. Ambani. Thank you for your question.
Thank you
It
for
was
the
a good
question. And on that note, Rahulji, shall we sum up? And
Yeah, I just want to conclude. First of all, I need to conclude because we've got to. First of all, I come to Kerala and I now have a bond with Kerala. It is not a,
Kerala loves you too.
no, I'm serious. See, you don't understand the depth of it. I'll tell you why. And I feel this, right? Because when I was under vicious attack, the most vicious, unfair attack, Kerala embraced me. That I'm not going to forget. I cannot forget ever. Many people embraced me, but Kerala embraced me. Right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I've learned a lot from you. I've learned about respecting people, about respecting other cultures, about being affectionate to people, about even how you do your politics, how you run your hospitals, how you do even your political meetings. I've learned a lot from you. So I have a debt of gratitude towards you. I'm a debtor to the people of Kerala. Okay? And so for me, I'm not partial to one Keralite or another Keralite. For me, all Keralites are the same. And I'm interested in being your partner, in helping you achieve whatever you choose to achieve. It's your journey. These are your decisions. But I would like you to know that I'm there to work with you, to help you in whatever way I can. Finally, your history, your tradition, your giants like Narayana Guruji are guides. In our culture, a guru is given a exalted place. They're national gurus. They teach our country the direction in which we should be going. Their ideas, of course, are embedded in our constitution and are embedded in our democracy, but they are like lighthouses that, this is where we should be going. And that, when I speak of a Narayana Guru, he is actually a person, but he reflects the spirit of Kerala. He only became Narayana Guru because he reflected the spirit of the people.
The rebellious spirit.
Yeah. And he only became what he became because he expressed your spirit. And I want that the people of Kerala, young, old, male, female, poor, rich, always express freely and openly the spirit of Kerala.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate.
Thank you for inviting me here. It's an honor and a pleasure. I had a very nice time. Thank you all for coming and having this conversation.
Ranjit, would you come over and present a memento to Rahulji, please?
Thank you. I see your dog here.